my dudes, welcome back to my series, Internet Analysis. Today, I am just in the mood to talk about jobs. Work sucks, I know, but I have been really interested in the rise of anti-work attitudes and that deeper desire that many people feel to do work that is fulfilling and actually matters. Lastly, I finally read this book and I just wanted a reason to be able to chat about it. So yes, I know work can be a harrowing topic, especially now, but I actually want this to be a hopeful video. So stay tuned. First, I want to start with the Mamdani snow shoveling initiative. If I had $1 for every time I have gleefully ranted about this, I would have at least $10. Back in February, we had a blizzard here in New York, and everyone needed the sidewalks cleared quickly and efficiently. We can't be having that slushy mess again. The Department of Sanitation has many employees, but even with all hands on deck, they needed more help. So Mayor Mamdani puts out a bulletin trying to entice more temporary shovelers, and importantly, he bumped the pay from $19 to $30 an hour, which unsurprisingly generated more interest. Thousands of workers set out overnight, and by morning, boom, sidewalks are clear. They're looking beautiful. And that makes a huge difference to literally everyone, whether you are a wheelchair user, a parent with a stroller, anybody heading to work, school, or taking your dog out. Everyone needs to navigate the streets safely and comfortably. So that was great. Immediately after this, I started to see TikToks from some of those temp workers. They were stoked at the chance to earn a little bit of extra money at a solid wage. And shoveling is definitely not easy, but many of them reported actually enjoying the process. It's rewarding work, they said. It's satisfying to know that you just made a tangible difference in the lives of your fellow New Yorkers. And did some of these TikToks make me cry? Yes. Because this is so simple, but it is beautiful. It's great to see government working as it should, taking care of people, and people feeling pride, feeling connected to their neighborhood. We love to see it. Now, of course, some losers found a way to hate on this nice moment, saying like, oh, well, Mamdani isn't the first to do this. Well, duh, nobody's saying that he invented the idea of hiring temp workers, but we are applauding the efficiency, the ease. We're happy to see a good work opportunity and a decent wage go straight to the workers, because too often in government in this sort of situation, they would hire a private company who's gonna hire contractors and subcontractors who pay the actual shovelers like minimum wage. The whole project ends up costing more just so that middleman company can enjoy bigger profits, and the results are subpar. Lose-lose. Boo. So yeah, we would rather see that money go straight to the pockets of local people.
This was a case of the local government using New York City taxpayer money to pay residents of New York City to benefit residents of New York City. It's almost like if you pay people a living wage, they want to work. This is groundbreaking. Somebody write this down.
But guess what? After the storm, the roads were destroyed. There were tons of potholes. Ugh. But fear not, Mamdani's racing to get those fixed too. Filling 7,000 potholes in a day. Who knew? The government can get things done sometimes? Genuinely shocked. My God, I am so inspired when things work the way they should. It's so beautiful to witness, but this is the way that it should be everywhere, all the time. Now, we probably already have some people in the comments saying, I'm too European for this. And hey, if you cannot relate to these struggles, I'm genuinely happy for you. But for those of us in the US, yes, the bar is that low. So low that we are crying tears of joy at basic public maintenance.
It's pretty surreal for Americans to see exactly where our taxes are going and to feel those benefits immediately. We're not really used to that.
So yes, in recent months especially, I have been thinking a lot about jobs, and especially that simple beauty of useful, necessary work. The true value of essential workers who too often still don't get the appreciation you deserve, let alone a living wage. In this specific context, I want to discuss our expectations for work and life. I want to dream of an overhaul. We have to be able to imagine that things can be better. It's doable. In terms of work, it is deeply frustrating that so many people right now are desperate for jobs, and there is plenty that needs to be done. Look around. And not just shoveling snow, but like education, healthcare, transportation, infrastructure. So many sectors that are useful and necessary, but are painfully understaffed and underfunded. I can't help but think, obviously we should be investing in these sorts of jobs, right? Imagine, like, there's a world in which the DMV is actually quite pleasant and efficient. And while we're on the topic of work, here's a very graceful transition. This portion of today's video video is partnered with Wild. Have you ever had a deodorant that you've been using for years just suddenly stop working for you overnight? I have. Especially since pregnancy, having a baby, my body has just been changing constantly. So I was very excited to try Wild's refillable deodorant. Allow me to explain how this works. First of all, they have many cute case options, so you can just pick whichever one suits your fancy. I have these cute little bees. So to add your first pack or do a refill swap, take off the top of the case, twist the case all the way down, put the refill back on, put the top of the case back on, and then twist, twist, twist. It really is very easy. These deodorants are aluminum and paraben free. They're vegan and Leaping Bunny certified. But most importantly, you're asking, how does it work? For me, for my body, it is very effective and I really enjoy it. I love the smell. I think my favorite one so far is coconut and vanilla. But yeah, I have really sensitive armpit skin. Sometimes other deodorants give me rashes, and I found again that this is very smooth, it's very gentle, but it still lasts and it leaves a nice light scent, which is my preference. So this has been a successful swap for me. If you're looking to try a new deodorant or maybe a refillable body wash or lip balm, check out Wild. I have a link and code which are valid for a limited time. You can use code tiffanyferg to get 20% off of all products. This video is kind of a sequel to my episode Laziness Does Not Exist, which examined the general concept of laziness. And since then, I had wanted to cover the struggles of feeling lazy specifically in the realm of wage labor. Because even though I am self-employed, I still constantly worry that I should be working more hours. I should grind 24/7, no breaks, maximize revenue. Otherwise, I'm a terrible and lazy worker. And spoiler, obviously I hate that mindset and I resist the hustle messaging because it's toxic. But even aside from my personal situation, it is not our fault as individuals that we are not thriving in this oppressive, dysfunctional system. Kind of like it's actually designed to not let us thrive. Finally, we get to the rise of anti-work. Our collective attitudes toward work and capitalism have changed so much, even just in the past decade or so. We had hustle culture, the grind set, the kings of passive income, but that was mostly targeted toward men. So over here in Millennial Pink, we had the girl boss era. Yes, the system is rigged against us, ladies. But what if you were the boss? Lean into capitalism. But soon enough, that vaguely progressive veneer shattered, revealing that too many girl bosses will still tolerate misogyny, racism, and inequality in their companies, as long as they're the CEO. Turns out that boss being woman is not the straightforward solution that some hoped for. Then we saw the rise of side hustles promoted as flexible work options. Be your own boss, work the hours you want, so you can dedicate the rest of your time to your passions or starting a new business. But after a while, these side hustles were no longer extra money. The gig economy became a necessity, the only option for many workers. Meanwhile, giant corps like Uber lowered pay and fought against propositions to classify drivers as employees. Nope, nothing to see here. These are just independent contractors and therefore they get no protections. Bye. Unsurprisingly, the people are fed up. We have seen a massive rise in anti-work attitudes. r/anti-work, for example. The pandemic especially opened up so many more conversations about class consciousness, exploitation, work-life balance.
Friendly reminder that all corporate America is a bunch of people cosplaying professionals, mashing buttons all day while circling back and following up. It is not worth your stress or your energy. Clock in, clock out, and who gives a fuck?
Underpaid and underappreciated workers began quiet quitting, the revolutionary act of literally just doing your job, not going above and beyond. Why would you? You're not gonna get a raise and you're only gonna get rewarded with more work.
Do what is required, do it well, and let your superiors believe it took the full allotted time, even if it only took you 1/20th.
Then we had the I don't dream of labor conversation, which was huge. Everyone is working so hard, but still nothing is stable. Why would I put everything, my all, into pursuing a career? Do careers even exist anymore? Especially as the American dream has crumbled, that promise of working hard, getting promoted, working your way up the ladder, and then retiring with a great pension and a 401k, that is not happening anymore. We're all aware, work sucks, especially right now. People are not getting paid enough. Every company is buying into the AI bubble. We're seeing tons of layoffs, and we're all worried that our jobs will soon become obsolete. I feel for anyone who is unemployed or underemployed right now because this job market is absolutely brutal. And even just summarizing summarizing that out loud, it is easy to fall into doomerism. I get overwhelmed by the state of the world on a daily basis. But I do believe that as bad as things are right now, and even especially because it's so bad, I think that makes this an even more crucial moment to re-examine everything. Here's a crazy thought. Maybe work doesn't have to be so bad. Honestly, our society is productive and prosperous enough that we could all be working less and living well. We can expand our social safety nets, ensure a great life for everyone. We can eradicate poverty and homelessness. And obviously this would require major resource reallocations. I get it. Our government would have to be like entirely different. We need more unions. We need more democratic worker-run workplaces. And yes, elected officials with actual morals and spines. Don't kill your daydream. We have to believe in something better. But we do have enough food, homes, and money, all of which are either right now being hoarded by the ultra-rich or going to waste. Meanwhile, our tax dollars are funding war and terror. Not only do we deserve better, but good policies are actually possible. And best of all, these systems would be more efficient and cost less than the mess we're in right now. As the UAW president, Shawn Fain, told union members, if we don't lead this fight, if we don't lead these conversations, no one is going to do it. We have to change the narrative. I really do believe in the power of just talking and having conversations about what could be. We can shift the Overton window and things can change. I came across this TikTok this week and it felt very relevant.
We cannot individual consumer choice our way out of this mess. We need massive changes and regulation to the entire way that the tech industry operates. But how do you think policy gets changed? It's individual people who are making the policy change. Individuals working collectively or individuals building movements make policy change happen.
All that being said, it's not like I think this singular YouTube video is going to change the world, but I do think it's very important to dream and actually share our big ideas for the future, even if they sound absurdly, impossibly far away. Fighting to have enough time, money, and energy to enjoy life is not naive. Ultimately, living to work does not make any sense. We want to work to live. Crazy idea. And yeah, if we have to have jobs and dedicate, 40 hours a week to this thing, a lot of people do want that job to be somewhat meaningful, maybe even fulfilling.
When I was in college, I thought I had to have a very, very serious job in order to feel important. And now I literally work in a bakery and I still feel important. I still feel like I'm making a really positive impact on other people's days. And if anything, it gives me so much more purpose than my last job ever did.
All that being said, I think it's very important to note that I still do not want people's value to be linked to wage labor. People who don't work or cannot work are still equally valuable. Plus, all of the unpaid labor, care work, just because it isn't paid doesn't make it any less legitimate, necessary, or impactful. My goal for this video is definitely not to valorize or overly romanticize work. I'm just writing from the perspective of like, yes, there is work to be done to maintain the world, society. And many people do actually enjoy working. They like putting their energy into something. Again, whether that's wage labor or not. And yeah, I believe that we can do enough. Everyone can do what they're capable of. They can contribute in their own ways and we can have a better world. Come on, people. Continuing on, now that we've talked about the desire to have a helpful or fulfilling job, we've got to talk about the antithesis to useful jobs. Bullshit jobs. I'm about to say bullshit about 1,000 times.
Hear me out for a second. Most of our jobs are useless.
Okay, here's something that none of us probably really want to admit, but there's a really good chance that your job is bullshit.
Most of the labor that we do, in fact, actually just feeds into a cycle of a system that keeps us busy rather than actually solving problems or creating a service or product at the end of the day.
Here it is, baby. Bullshit Jobs is a 2018 book written by David Graeber, who, rest in peace, sadly passed in 2020. The concept is simple. Many of us work jobs that are somewhat or even entirely bullshit. Now hold on, before you get angry, I am not calling your job bullshit. Graeber wrote this book from the perspective of the workers, so the question is really whether you would say your own job is bullshit, or the extent to which you think it's bullshit. And he means bullshit as in, bullshit. A bullshit job is a form of employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence, even though the employee feels obliged to pretend that is not the case. And throughout this section, just remember, this is the bullshit jobs theory. So let's just have fun, consider this as a thought exercise, and just see if anything resonates with you. Hilariously, a few weeks into writing this, If Books Could Kill came out with an episode on bullshit jobs. What are the chances? Why now? They were critical of it, of course, which is the point of their podcast, but personally, I have really enjoyed this book. I found it very funny and entertaining, though I usually do find most nonfiction books drag on just a little too long. Anyway, let's get into it. Graeber originally wrote an essay on bullshit jobs, which went viral, and he received a lot of stories from people, and then for the book, he collected more testimonies. The opening example in the book is this guy, Kurt, who works for a subcontractor for the German military. Let's say a soldier moves to an office 2 rooms down. Instead of just carrying his computer over there, he has to fill out a form. An IT subcontractor will approve it, forward to logistics. They'll request personnel. Kurt is assigned this job. He rents a car, drives hundreds of kilometers to the barracks, fills out forms, puts the computer in a box, seals the box, has the logistics guy carry the box to the next room where Kurt unseals the box, hooks up the computer, fills out more forms, gets a couple signatures, and drives back home. So instead of the soldier carrying his computer for 5 meters, 2 people drive for a combined 6 to 10 hours, fill out 15 pages of paperwork, and waste a good 400 euros of taxpayers' money. Now, that may sound like a very extreme example, but it happens. Sometimes bullshit jobs are just due to layers of bureaucracy and unnecessary tasks, overly complicated systems that could be streamlined. Some critics try to argue, like, no, this would never happen under capitalism because capitalism is about, increasing profits, so you want to keep expenses down. No company would hire unnecessary workers or give them pointless tasks. I disagree.
I used to work for a third-party marketing company. Basically, brands would send cardboard standees to Walgreens or Best Buy or whatever. I would go to those stores and ask the manager, hey, do you want me to build out this end cap that's sitting in storage? The managers, all of them, would just say no. And then I would just give them my paperwork. They would sign it for 45 minutes of labor for every single sheet that they said no to. And I would get paid for like 35 hours worth of work in a single day. They paid me for this for months and months and months. I never built a single thing. I don't know why that job exists.
And Graeber's argument for this is basically like, this exists as much in the private sector as it does in the public sector. A lot of people blame like government jobs for being super bureaucratic and wasteful, but like it happens in all sorts of jobs.
The same stuff that we kind of attribute to like socialism and like full governmental bloat and whatever, the idea of like a lot of red tape and not a lot of speed and not a lot of movement on things, seems to have come about in actual complex, like private industrial complexes as well. The government starts contracting out to different private companies to engage with, because there's this notion that if we get private industry involved, things will be better, things will be faster, things will be greater. But unfortunately, because of people having to justify their own jobs and people having to justify value and driving value, they usually end up wanting to make more and more jobs and turning one task into 50 tasks that then require 50 people. And that means you have to hire more people, and that means you get paid more money because you can justify that. That's a bad thing.
Graeber basically estimates that if 40% of jobs are completely pointless, and at least half of the work done in other jobs is equally pointless, we can probably conclude that like half of our labor power is directed toward bullshit. That's just wasteful and dumb. But still, you might be thinking, okay, whatever, what's the big deal? I don't care if my job is bullshit, I just need a paycheck. And I totally get that. Again, I think all of us would choose a bullshit job over no job because we need to survive. And in writing this, Graeber is not advocating for mass layoffs. He doesn't want everyone to just lose their jobs and be screwed. Again, this whole book, this theory, it's just an idea, so a lot of puzzle pieces would have to shift around in order to make things different. But his point is, if half of the workload is bullshit, let's cut down our hours, pay people the same, and the same amount of actual work will be accomplished. He writes, we could easily become societies of leisure and institute a 20-hour work week, maybe even 15 hours. Instead, we find ourselves as a society condemned to spending most of our time at work, performing tasks that we feel make no difference in the world whatsoever. So I think about this in terms of the micro level, like individual fulfillment side, and on the macro level, just wanting society to focus on actually necessary practical stuff.
I work in nonprofit and I'm government adjacent, and the more I'm in the field, the more I realize that all of this is quite literally useless. Because think about it, if we had services and systems and a social safety net, most of our jobs would be completely eliminated. I know mine would be. My entire company would shut down.
If I could snap my fingers and change all the jobs around, I would rather cut the bullshit so that we can do good, important things. And that includes art and creative work, of course.
When you look at the public service sector, most of the public services that are created are actually just linkage. They're not even direct services. So those public dollars are just going to salaries and whatever else in the bureaucratic system. That money could quite literally just be going into people's pockets through a reduction in taxes that are taken out of their paycheck or checks being cut to the working class. And this is just the public sector. When we look at the private sector, most of the goods that we produce are not things that we actually need or even want. Look at how much we ship overseas in terms of trash.
So let's continue with some more bullshit job examples. Again, I think of this theory as a spectrum, more like what percentage of any given job is bullshit, as in unnecessary or pointless, because every job has some elements that can be seen as bullshit. But there are jobs that are so bullshit, overwhelmingly bullshit, that you could literally stop working entirely and nobody would notice. One example was a receptionist that worked at an office that literally received one phone call a day. So like, was she really necessary? And they would give her busy work like sorting paper clips by color. Is that a bullshit job? Being a receptionist is not, but like that specific position in that specific company, yeah, more or less bullshit. Another person in the book worked for an elder care facility, and a big part of her job was to have residents fill out forms about their favorite activities. But those forms never went anywhere. They never impacted the activity schedule. It was just for the sake of fill out this form so that we can say we filled out the form. And then they would literally be filed away and forgotten about forever. Graeber writes, another distinction that's important to bear in mind is between jobs that are pointless and jobs that are merely bad. I will refer to the latter as shit jobs, since most people often do. Bullshit jobs often pay quite well and tend to offer excellent working conditions. They're just pointless. Shit jobs are usually not at all bullshit. They typically involve work that needs to be done and is clearly of benefit to society. It's just that the workers who do them are paid and treated badly. These jobs tend to be blue collar and pay by the hour, whereas bullshit jobs tend to be white collar and salaried. Now again, you may be listening to this and thinking, hey, I work in an office, I have a white collar job, but it's not bullshit, and that's fine. Again, it is your judgment to make. Maybe your job as a whole is not bullshit, but is it maybe true that more and more of your day is taken up by bullshit tasks? A super relatable problem that many office workers complain about is how much of their time gets monopolized by pointless Zoom calls that don't really accomplish anything. Derek Thompson wrote this article, "White collar work is just meetings now." Microsoft found that since 2020, workers in this study have tripled the time they spent in meetings. Of course, some of this is due to companies just getting larger and different departments need to keep in touch. So of course, there are valid, necessary meetings, but too often workers get off a call and they're like, that could have been an email. You're jumping on a call, you're doing a one-on-one with your manager and just chatting about anything but work. What's the point? This Redditor wrote, setting up and coordinating meetings across full calendars and doing research to prepare for all those upcoming meetings is so time-consuming. There were times when my colleagues wanted to have a damn meeting about the meeting to make sure we were all on the same page. Well, yes, of course it's not bullshit to have a pre-meeting about the meeting and have your post-meeting meeting about the meeting's meeting. Thompson writes, every interruption in your workday costs time. A 30-minute meeting could end up being a 1-hour detour. Ultimately, what really makes a lot of these bullshit meetings so much more frustrating is that they're stopping people from being able to focus and actually do the work they need to get done. So many employees report, quote, spending so much time in meetings, taking calls, and combing through their inbox that most of their critical work often had to wait until they were home. And that is absurd. I am mad for you all. We should be personally offended when so much of our time is literally wasted by this kind of work, this questionable, unnecessary work. Now, quickly, I want to get into the reason why I became so obsessed with this book and this concept. I remember learning about this. I think I just read the original essay years ago, and immediately I was hooked. I was like, I want to talk to everyone about bullshit jobs. I want to ask people how bullshit they think their job is. And the interesting thing is, like, even though I am self-employed, I used to compare myself to office workers, and I was like, okay, I I should be working 9 to 5 as well. I should just wake up, work from home, just like any other worker, because that's what work is. That's what productive adults do. But I couldn't do it. And I found in years of diligently tracking my work hours, literally stopping the clock if I take a break or I go to the bathroom. So like these are very accurate numbers. A lot of days I would only get like 4 hours of active work done. And I'm like, I feel like I just spent all day working. What's going on? And this made me feel so guilty and lazy. Why can't I just force myself to get more work done? What it comes down to for me most of the time is that researching and writing, the script process, those are very intensive tasks. So I find I can only be productive for a few hours before my brain just starts to go to mush. I could stay on the clock staring at my computer, but I'm probably not doing good work at that point. So personally, I've come to accept this because again, it works in my job, it works in my balance. I think that that is fine because I have the freedom and the privilege to not overwork myself. I can choose to stop, take breaks, and give myself some downtime, which I think is super important for the creative process anyway. I have to give myself time to think. That's when all my ideas come out. Who knew? Anyway, back to my point. It rocked my world when I learned the following. Apparently, many white-collar office workers report that though they work 9 to 5, they are only productive for about half the day. If they had to put a number on it, they're doing maybe 4 hours of work. Now, of course, this is not the case for everyone with an office job, but anecdotally, a lot of people say that that is more or less the case. They're not actually working 8 full hours, because you count, you know, taking breaks, talking with coworkers, sitting by the water cooler, getting interrupted, hopping onto a call that was pointless. So first of all, that was such a relief to me. It was nice to hear that like, oh, a lot of people are only working 4 hours or they're getting that much work done. It made it feel like a more normal amount. But secondly, I feel bad for these office workers because they have to be physically in the office or logged in and active on Slack until at least 5 p.m., sometimes 6, 7, depending on your job. And it just will never make sense to me to hold employees hostage when they are done with their work for the day.
Doing a bullshit job often means that you're not actually there for the job itself. You're there to fill a seat for 8 hours a day, at least. Your tasks as a worker might only take like 6 hours total for the entire week, but you need to be there for 40 hours because that's what a job is.
The thought that you just have to sit at your desk because that's how work works. So again, zooming out and thinking on like a macro level, how much of the 40-hour work week is more or less bullshit, especially when it comes to these sorts of jobs? How many people could finish all of their work in a couple of hours, but still have to perform busyness just because the arbitrary office standard is 9 to 5?
So much of corporate America is literally just busy work in theater. You do kind of have to learn how to show that you're working, not actually work. And is that absolutely ridiculous? It is, but it's literally just the way the corporate America works.
Like so much of things that you have to do at jobs, including going to the office, is based around like optical appearances. Like all these things don't make your job any better. They don't make you do better work. It's like we're all playing pretend. Like I worked at a restaurant and sometimes you had to just like go and move quickly and look confused, like just so the managers be happy. They have no idea what you're doing, but because you look like you're confused and stressed, it's like, oh yeah, he's doing good work.
And also when it comes to like, again, our work habits, and I can attest to this for myself, a lot of people work in bursts rather than like chugging along consistently. And I think it's absolutely unrealistic and just not attainable to expect that every single person can work robotically, being perfectly productive for 8 or more hours a day. Like we need rest. We need time to be able to process information and think and be creative.
If you work at your computer all day, let me ask you this. How much time do you spend in your 8-hour workday, let's say, thinking, actually sitting there and using your brain?
Surveys reveal that 30% of knowledge workers claim they do absolutely no thinking while they're at work, and nearly 60% say they do less than half an hour of thinking.
The way that work is set up, you need to keep busy instead of thinking, because thinking involves spacing out, daydreaming, imagining, doodling, writing, walking, listening to a podcast, taking a shower. Like that's where thinking happens. But that necessarily does not look like working or look busy or feel productive.
Well, you're lucky. You get paid to do nothing. Some people might say, especially those working lower paid or physically demanding jobs, that a bullshit office job would be a dream. I would love to get paid to do essentially nothing and just pretend to look busy. And that is totally valid. Again, when I'm talking about like bullshit jobs just happens to be a lot of white collar work, but I'm not trying to say that like white collar workers are the most oppressed. Definitely not. There are so many privileges when it comes to being a white collar worker. And again, I'm aware of the context we're in right now, the unemployment, the horrific job market. Many people are begging for any job, let alone a relatively cushy office job. So I don't want to sound like I'm discounting the privilege that office jobs hold. I just think it can be easy to let this devolve into a blue collar versus white collar issue. But we have to remember that like different types of workers are not the enemy. Truly, we are all the working class. We're the 99%. I think we should fight for better working conditions for everyone. And that's gonna look different across different industries. But I think we've got to focus on like the end game. You know, we all want to do less bullshit and be treated better and earn a living wage and have a decent life. But back to my point. Many people ask, why don't these people just sit back and enjoy their pointless nothing job? And I do think that's a very interesting question to dig into. Graeber's answer was basically that despite the fact that these jobs are seen as well respected and highly coveted, the sheer bullshit of it all can end up being so mentally taxing, soul crushing, and in the worst cases, even psychologically damaging.
These jobs where you are sitting at a computer not doing anything, they will suck your lifeblood. It is so hard to explain to people who don't have these kinds of jobs just how much the performance causes a spiritual wound.
Again, not to say that those things can't be true in other sorts of work, but there's something about knowing that your job is so bullshit, so pointless. Like, it's not surprising that it's hard to dedicate yourself to that when you're like, I know that this is accomplishing nothing.
I really, really, really do not like my job. They do not give two shits about me or any other employee in the office. We're in sales, we're driving up and down the state all fucking day, serving no purpose, having no fun, everybody venting, calling each other, saying they fucking hate it. Oh my God, what is the point? We are serving no purpose and nothing actually gets accomplished. It is fucking pointless. Please, for the love of God, tell me the point of my fucking job.
I thought of this when I was watching Bridgerton's latest season. It involved the Queen's ladies in waiting, and I was like, oh my God, bullshit job. Their job is to stand there and like hold a Pomeranian. Even a high value position that should be an honor can be painfully boring and empty. And even worse, you might face the Queen's wrath if she happens to be in a bad mood one day. Off with your head. I do think the lack of purpose is painful. It's a different kind of stress. Anyway, Graeber writes, I certainly wouldn't want to equate the different forms of oppression between shit jobs and bullshit jobs. Few people I know would trade in a pointless middle management position for a job as a ditch digger. All I wish to emphasize here is that each is indeed oppressive in its own way. So yes, these are privileged positions, but having a bullshit job can still be painful for your brain and your sense of worth, your sense of self, and I do think therefore it is worth examining because these sorts of jobs have actually been on the rise. These sorts of knowledge jobs. So many people are doing computer work. So I want to dig into some specific elements. Number one, when you have a bullshit job that you know is bullshit, you're kind of always scared, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the day that your boss realizes you actually don't have much work to do and fires you. So you're probably not relaxed. You might be bored, but you're very anxious all the time. Number two, who would have thought it could be so exhausting just to pretend to look busy? Perhaps you're being surveilled, your supervisor's watching, or your actual screen and keyboard are being monitored. So it's not like you can just sit and watch YouTube and chill all day necessarily. For hours, every single day, you have to try to find things to do just to appear busy. Number three, similarly, in these super low stimulation jobs, time passes so slowly. There's nothing to do but just stare and think. An example in the book was this museum security guard whose post was a literal empty room. He had to stand there 8 hours a day. No guests were allowed in, so he was guarding a room with nothing in it. He couldn't sit down, he couldn't glance at his phone, and after a short time, he just couldn't do it anymore. And technically, yes, he was being paid to essentially do nothing. I would argue he's being paid to like stand on his feet all day and be vigilant. Might sound easy in theory, but honestly to me it sounds like a Mr. Beast challenge combined with a huge test of my screen addiction. I couldn't do it. And number four, I think perhaps the worst part of a bullshit job is psychologically working a job that you know is pointless, your work isn't helping or accomplishing much, especially because we tend to tie our jobs to our self-worth. If your job is pointless, it can make you feel like your life is pointless.
And you would think to yourself, you're getting paid a lot of money, why do you feel so sad? And it's because these people want to do something. And usually people that went to these very highly ranked colleges and did really well and came out with like a pretty sought after job And now they're working long hours tirelessly to kind of follow all these standards that feel quite arbitrary, but they have to buy into it because everyone sort of bought into it.
You as a person don't get to use or develop your skills or knowledge. You're basically doing nothing, and it doesn't feel good. Now, of course, many people working shit jobs also feel like they're wasting their life, you know? An 8-hour shift as a cashier isn't that pointless, but I would argue cashiers serve a useful purpose. Even if it isn't necessarily enjoyable, we do need clerks, cashiers, store attendants, at least until the robots take over. Regardless though, if you feel that your work is bullshit, your job is pointless, you're allowed to feel that way and struggle with that mental suffering. We are quite literally wasting our lives on bullshit work. Here you are watching minutes, hours, months, years of your actual life fly by. That is pretty torturous mentally. Can definitely send you into a panic of existential dread. And this is the part of bullshit jobs that upsets me the most. We are meant to sacrifice everything: relationships, time, community, love, for work because we need money to live. And worst of all, it's such a slap in the face that so much of that work is not even necessary. It's pointless. Or even potentially it's actively harming other people or the world. Hate that. But I'm like, literally, this is life. Right now, this moment. You're at work on your lunch break watching this. This is your life. This is one day of your life. It's funny that like when you vocalize this kind of stuff, it sounds naive or like, oh, that's just the way it is. Like, accept it. But it's like, it doesn't have to be that way though. So that's what's driving me nuts. If like we were doing super crucial work, we're farming, we're taking care of infrastructure, we're taking care of people, like that's work that needs to be done. And like, yes, it might be a slog, like work sucks, sure. But at least if you knew the thing I'm doing is accomplishing something, it is making society better, it's helping other people, I'm doing my part, I'm doing my little bit. But to think that you're sitting and doing work that doesn't do anything good, and yet it's supposed to be your biggest focus, you're supposed to be obsessed with work, you're supposed to think of it as your purpose, that's your identifier, is what you do for work all day, and that is bullshit? Yeah, that's crazy making. This is absurd. Like, I'm mad on behalf of everyone. Yes, right now my job is YouTuber, and you can say that's bullshit, but I think entertainment, you know, I think it's decent. Some parts of my job are bullshit, yes. But like, do I think I'm gonna be a YouTuber forever? No. I'm sure someday in the future I'm gonna be working another job. That job may or may not be bullshit. So I am equally as invested in this concept on behalf of not just myself, but like my husband, my loved ones, everyone. I don't want anyone to be condemned to working some pointless ass bullshit job that's soul sucking. I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. Honestly, when you think about it, everything is fake. We made it all up. The economy? That's fake. The work week? Yeah, arbitrary. It has changed. We can change it again. And I know, again, I sound like a teenager who's just like, the man wants us to be trapped in the system and be too busy, too distracted to do anything else. But I'm like, they've got a point there. Hello? When you say that as a teenager or a young person, people are like, yeah, wait till you get a real job and pay bills. But it's like, yeah, we do get numbed by the responsibilities of being an adult. But I think more of us should remember that. I'm like, it's pretty true. I mean, yeah. Not to sound conspiratorial, but like the powers that be, they do benefit from us all being overworked, exhausted, paying the little money that we have for conveniences because we literally have no time or energy to like do anything else, even like feed ourselves. So if all we have time to do is work and then consume shit, we're not gonna be as much of a threat. That's all I'm saying. Finally, we get to the dream. Crazy pitch here. Increased social safety nets, much shorter work week, better jobs, equals more free time to enjoy life. And society is better and happier overall because everyone's not so stressed out and angry. Now, this is not my perfect utopia. This is not an exhaustive list of everything I would dream of. And this is not representative of my entire politics because the script would literally never end. But truly, I do think these are very reasonable and feasible, even within our very shitty capitalist world. I would call this the bare minimum of like a functional, decent society. This is basically just like the Nordic states. Social democracy. So it's not the end point, but it is, you know, part of the bridge, at least the transition. Like, we can make some improvements. To many, this might sound naive, but it really can be that simple. Other countries have these things. Do I know the exact detailed policy proposals? No, but I'm not the government. I'm a YouTuber. Let the wonks sort that out.
In the most ideal form, a federal government or a national government's job is to zoom out and see the bigger picture, that individual citizens, that businesses, that local governments can't necessarily see. It's Mamdani saying we need snow shoveled and these people need jobs. Great. It's FDR saying, hey, these guys need jobs and we need to prevent a future dust bowl, so let's pay them to go plant trees as wind stops. Is it the solution? No, it's a stopgap, right? But its intent, like FDR knew, he knew that the most important thing that the government could do right now in a moment of crisis was give people hope, give people a little bit of money in their pocket.
Number 2, a shorter, more flexible work week. At first, I wanted to shit on the 4-day work week because I don't think it goes far enough, but we'll start there, okay? I want a 4-day work week for everyone, but not 40 hours squeezed in to 4. I want like a 30 to 32 hour work week. As was mentioned in this book, Keynes, the economist, had a theory that by this point, you know, technology and society would be so productive that we could have a 15-hour work week. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you know what? I think you're right. I don't think we are ready for that, but like I vote for it. I think it would work. Like the goal would be like maybe 15, 20 hours, but if we have to start at 30, we'll just keep notching it back. And I know for some jobs, a shorter work week might seem impossible. Like, how would you structure that? How would that work? I don't know, but I do think it could be done. My answer is just, I don't know, just do it. Like maybe you're like, oh my God, my job is terribly understaffed already. There's no way I can do less days. But again, part of this big dream is like we redistribute the real good work to more people as each individual is working less hours. But again, the pay stays the same, or we have some kind of system to where, you know, you could survive off a little bit less income because you have housing and healthcare and everything else. I want people to have job security. I want people to be able to change jobs if and when they please. I want people to have set hours so that they can schedule the rest of their life and have time to live. And third part of the equation, better jobs. By this again, I mean useful, like necessary work. I don't want to create more bullshit, like unnecessary jobs just for the sake of having a job. But again, I'm thinking, first of all, focus on the industries that are understaffed and actually increase their budgets so that they can hire enough people so that they can function and do everything they need to do. Duh. The fact that like we kind of joke about our healthcare workers being completely exhausted and sleep deprived. It's like those are people literally saving lives and we're good with them working like a 24-hour shift straight with no sleep. Maybe, just maybe. Sound like Bernie. Maybe it would be better for like our healthcare workers to get some sleep. For example, every time I think about flying, I remember that our FAA and our air traffic controllers are severely understaffed, which has led to multiple plane crashes and deaths. The fact that we've even gotten to this place where air traffic control is understaffed, like if that were up to me, it would be overstaffed. It would kind of be a little ridiculous. People would be like, oh, there's like so little to do. I want the most rested, alert, focused, calm air traffic controllers. You would think that would be common sense, but here we are. There is so much work that needs to be done. When I think about climate change, when I think about I'm like, we should be investing so much in, again, I mean, essentially the Green New Deal. When I look around and I'm like, yeah, which public works projects would I create? There's plenty to do. And every single one of those sectors needs not only like, you know, scientists, people out in the field, you need admin, you need construction, you need repairmen, you need and then of course we would still need the regular jobs like food service, admin, retail, the essential workers who keep our days going, and of course creative work and entertainment, because we still want to watch our little shows at the end of the day. Still want to listen to a little podcast on my lunch break. Anyway, final thoughts. But genuinely, you think about this across the entire society, people working less hours means that every individual worker is better rested. They're gonna be calmer, less angry. They're gonna be more creative, more inspired, which is going to make you equally or potentially even more productive. It just seems so obvious to me. People get to live, baby. Imagine that. Time to chill, time to relax, take care of yourself and others, get involved in your community, join a club. We could actually all learn to cook, garden, sew, repair things, build things. How many incredible artists, writers, engineers, inventors, scientists are out there, but currently don't have the time to even consider, let alone nurture those talents. That's what's wild to me. I'm like, again, if you're gonna think about the opportunity cost, what's the opportunity cost of not letting all of these brilliant people do their thing? They're stuck doing a bullshit job somewhere. So that is that. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it was hopeful to you by the end of this episode. It can be hard when I'm vocalizing all of these things that I want and dream of. It can be really sad to think how far away all of that seems. It seems impossible, but I simply won't think about that any deeper. The biggest changes and the biggest improvements tend to come when things are the worst. Things are the most tumultuous. That's when change happens. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. Anyway, I do highly recommend reading Bullshit Jobs if you want to pick this up. Another book I used for a bit of research for this is Utopia for Realists by Rutger Bregman. That's that. Stay tuned for more. I almost just said more Bullshit Jobs. And next month's episode is The Bullshit Just Keeps Coming. Okay, thanks. Bye.